You can applaud for the endeavors of your company. There's a lot to be proud of in this team. Welcome back, rebooters. Did you have a nice time stretching legs, coffee drinking? Was good? Yeah? Did anybody meet somebody who did not have the same color on the badge? Great, great. Remember to post that on Reboot. We are now going to move on to the next, or the final presentation. It's a very excited group of people are ready for you. The first one is a lady called Louise Fuchs. She's communications manager and into social media. She's from Denmark. Remember the Danish Prime Minister from the French guy's presentation. It's not the capital of Stockholm anymore. And she is here to introduce some people that she's very, very enthusiastic about. She will do the introduction herself of those two people, but what I found out about Louise was that she's an animal lover. I love animals too. I have an English bulldog called Caesar, and she beats me there. She has cats, rabbits, horses, and dogs. Is that right? Yeah? So you have a zoo. She runs a zoo on the side. That's very good. And she also has something I can relate to, a bad habit, because she copies accents and dialects of people that she meets. That's a very inconvenient thing. I know the feeling. And we are now going to feel the enthusiasm that you are going to present. Please welcome to the stage, Louise Fuchs.
Thank you very much. Last year, around this time, when people were fleeing Europe through the Mediterranean Sea, many of them in the hands of smugglers, where their life was in real danger, Schibsted decided to do something about this, to take action. So together with the Swedish Sea Rescue Society, we launched an initiative, the one you just saw, together with Aftonbladet, SvD, and Schibsted Sverige. We got 2 rescue boats out into the sea in the Mediterranean Sea, and we helped save 1,892 lives. I know that some of you here today were actually volunteering on deck. And I know that you have told us that your life had changed after that. After this initiative, we saw Techfugees' effort and response to the needs of refugees all across the world. And we thought there is actually so much more we can do. We have so much technical skills and talent in Schibsted. Techfugees know the challenge that we can help solve. So if we combine those two, we have an amazing strength to really have a high impact. Not so long ago, we surveyed all the new people joining Schibsted Product and Technology to ask them why they actually joined Schibsted, and also how they like to develop their skills. And I was really happy and impressed with the answers. Many of you joined Schibsted because of the great challenges in the projects and the ability to be able to build something at a global scale. You also told us that you like to develop your skills through action learning, and you would prefer to do it while you volunteer. And having this information and knowing how many we are and how skilled we are, we believe we can really make a difference together. So, our goal and our hope, because we kind of need all of you to help with this, is to host hackathons in all our hubs and as many companies as possible within the next 12 months, so that we can build something sustainable and help Techfugees mobilize communities to build better solutions to make a difference in the refugee crisis. So we feel really proud and humble to become the global strategic partner with Techfugees. Schibsted is an international and modern media company we're becoming really tech-driven. And their mission is very much aligned with who we are. Because social responsibility for us is just it's not just an add-on, it's a core part of our DNA. So I feel really proud and humble to present on stage now Mike Butcher and Josephine Goop.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike. This is Josephine. As we all know, if you've been living under a rock, and I don't think that many of you have, you all know about what's going on in the world today. Last year, 1 million refugees came to Europe from the Middle East. But it's not just the Middle East. Today, 60 million refugees are around the world globally. It's natural disasters, it's war, it's climate change, in fact. The issue is not going away anytime soon. A million refugees came last year, but what do they do when they come? What do they do? 50 years ago, perhaps, they might have said, do you have some food? Do you have some water? What do they do? What they do is they say, where am I and where's the Wi-Fi? I bet you guys do that too as well, right? Where's the Wi-Fi? How can I connect? Studies have shown that connectivity and technology is making refugees more resilient. It makes them more independent, it empowers them, and it gets them out of many of the bad situations that they find themselves in. What happens when you lose your phone? You feel lost, right? Exactly that same feeling. Two-thirds of refugees today are women and children. The average time spent in a refugee camp is 17 years. 17 years. That's how long, and that's not just being a refugee. Many people spend their whole lives being refugees, displaced people. This is an enormous waste of human capital, and it's an enormous tragedy. But we're living in the 21st century. We need solutions that can scale to reach this problem. Last September, moved by the refugee crisis, I was walking along a street in London and thought, refugees, technology, there's got to be something going on here. Technology, refugees. Okay, dumb name, Techfugees. Dumb name, but I put up a Facebook page. I sent it out to my friends. About a day and a half later, I had 1,000 members. That's how interested the technology community was in getting involved in this issue. I thought, what are we going to do? Well, we put together a team of people, which I'm now joined by, and we put together, in 9 days, a conference in London. 300 people came from refugee organizations, the Red Cross, Médecins Sans Frontières, NGOs, hackers, entrepreneurs, even venture capitalists, incredibly. And we turned up to discuss what we could bring to this issue. But it wasn't just us in the room. Techfugees, the hashtag, took off like a meme. We all know lolcats, don't we? Well, this was a real changing hashtag. Techfugees took off around the world as a global meme, as a way of bringing together the community of technologists and the community of people dealing with the refugee crisis. Nobody had really done that before in such a big way, and it took off on a life of its own. My inbox suddenly started to fill up. Mike, look, we're in Krakow. We'd love to do a Techfugees hackathon. What do you think? Go for it. Mike, we're from Oslo. We'd like to do a hackathon. We have a bunch of students in the city. We'd like to do something. Could you come over? That was the first hackathon outside of London, Techfugees in Oslo. They took off. Krakow, Belgrade. Politically, Hungary has an enormous problem with the refugee issue. But here were hackers, coders, engineers, technologists wanting to get involved, wanting to come up with solutions, coming up with potential websites, apps, you name it, hardware, software, bringing that design thinking that technologists, engineers, designers, marketers are able to think about and bring their skills to this issue. Even in Helsinki, of course, the guy in the middle of the name, his name's Hassan, and he's a Ruby on Rails developer from Aleppo in Syria. And you know, and I know, that technology is the solution, the platform which allows us to scale things fast and globally. It's not 1950 anymore, it's not 1945, it's the 21st century. So if we're going to do this, we need tech. And the biggest agencies in the world now have recognized this. UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, is now working with MIT, for instance, and has its own innovation arm. UNICEF Innovation, based out of New York, now has its own innovation arm. the biggest NGOs now are getting involved. But there are many small NGOs, many small NGOs, and many voluntary groups who all need technology to help them scale solutions to what's going on. What's going on? So what are they coming up with, Mike? Huh? You going to solve the refugee crisis with an app? Well, you know what? We're going to have a go at something. And these are the kinds of things that have been happening. In Croatia, a tiny little group of guys got together and just hacked together Wi-Fi that they could carry around in a backpack, that guy there, and they turned it into something called MeshPoint, 3D printed, that they could carry around, powered by batteries, in the backpack, and they allowed refugees to connect to their loved ones back at home, to be able to connect with each other. The amount of people who get lost, children get lost. There are currently 10,000 missing children, missing refugee children in Europe. This shouldn't be happening. It's 2016. What else? Goodness me, blockchain. How is this going to be applied? Well, it turns out you can verify if the aid has been delivered to a refugee using the blockchain. And there is a startup, in fact, right now, that just demoed last week in London, called Aid Tech, using the blockchain in order to be able to verify that the aid gets to where it's needed. Of course, education. Now, how hard is it to turn someone into a baker or to a butcher? Well, my name is Butcher, but that's another story. How hard is it to turn them into a plumber or a mechanic or a hairdresser? You need equipment and stuff. Education, being able to teach people coding skills, you give them a laptop, boom, incredible skills come out of them. Doesn't even have to be in tech. They can build a website to support themselves in some way, some kind of small business. Ready School in Berlin is a startup, entrepreneur-driven coding school that's partners with Techfugees and is turning refugees into developers, coders, designers. Health. MedShare is an app out of London, remote medical diagnosis. It means you could be in the middle of nowhere. You can be in the Bekaa Valley, in a Syrian refugee camp, and be able to diagnose a child's ailment, just from being able to share that information with other expert doctors around the world. Even artificial intelligence has to get in there somewhere, doesn't it? And now there are even bots being built to allow people to interact in their own language. Their own language. That is incredibly disruptive.
But
and
Mike,
that is a kind of solution that can scale.
We're talking about just the solution. Let's talk about the problems.
Okay.
There are problems to that. There are two problems, actually, in that sector that we've seen this year, and that's more interesting for that audience, I believe. Duplication. Great, we did a lot of a hackathon, but then people came up with the same solutions, and they would compete. They would compete to help refugees. That sounds really weird. We can build amazing stuff, fantastique stuff, right? I'm French. I can say it. But, yes. But it needs collaboration, and we need to create more collaboration in that sector. Same thing for lack of understanding. How many kids started creating an Airbnb for refugees? Do you really think they need Airbnb? They might just need connection to a Wi-Fi first, and then we'll see if they can download an app on Android phone if they have an email address. So what we did for the last year was trying to understand really what are the real problems on the ground, not the one that the journalists will tell you what they are. And they're probably less complex than what we think, but they're surely not what we thought they were. And so Techfugees has been for the past year championing real solutions, the one that I research, and the one that we've been capturing from the ground, like here in Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, home of 1 million, more than 1 million refugees that have been here recently, I've been here for 60, 40 years. People there in Lebanon and in Bekaa Valley know better, and they should start talking first. We also did hackathons where more and more refugees were involved. So we also obliged all the teams to not just use the refugee as a user feedback, proven evidence, but actually someone who creates and someone part of the project, like here in Helsinki, co-creating with refugees. And lastly, what we've discovered after a year building technology with 4 refugees and 4 NGOs is that we really need, in situations like this, not to chip in really expensive technology that will just soon die because they can't use it on the ground, they don't know how to use it, but really using a bootstrap attitude, the hacker mentality, the one that says, let's go for not trying to connect them through 3G, but actually use Bluetooth to connect phones all around this camp. And we know Bluetooth 5.0 is coming. It's going to be able to connect more at a bigger distance. What about using that instead of trying to connect to very expensive 3G? So this is what Discover for a year. Now Techfugees is a year old. Actually, today, I think it was. 27 places in the world. We have 15,000 members, and we're following hundreds of projects, prototyped at our events, also that were already working and came to our events or came to our mind, and email box, especially. And we understood that our role was not to create technology, but to be the provider of tech support to the NGOs. Not building unicorns, but actually providing support and technical people to the NGOs and the humanitarian sector. So we coordinate the NGO with the tech so they can talk to each other, understand each other, and deploy. We curate. We look at what are the best projects and the ones that really care about data security and data privacy, because you can't get that wrong. If data gets stolen about refugees, then it can end up in bad hands. And it's, smugglers made $6 billion last year. Just, there's a market. Maybe that's why the investors came, the VCs at the event. We focused on 5 areas now. We look at technology deployed in those 5 branches. Connectivity, connecting refugees to the internet and having them access technology. Education, offline, online education courses that exist and it's possible. Let's make it possible for refugees too. Identity, and in identity we look at blockchain a lot, but the idea of this focus area is we want refugees to be seen not as burden, but as resources, not as refugees, because refugee doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell me your nationality. It doesn't tell me your age. It doesn't mean what you've gone through. It just tells me one thing, is that you have a refugee status. How long will you have to live with this refugee status on your identity? So it's about providing them with tools so they can be recognized for their skills, for what they bring, for what they are, and also find back papers that they might have lost at sea. 4th, health. We've seen MedShare, but there are many other technology solutions we've seen on the ground. And it's not only physical health, like 3D printing of limbs that they've lost at war. This is also about mental health, because most of these refugees have seen situations that they will never forget. And to quote one of these girl that I saw from Syria in Jordan, who is coding now and learning how to code, actually. She said something that was so tweetable, I didn't believe her. And I said, are you sure you're not making that up? But she meant it. She said, I was waking up because of nightmares every day. And now that she started coding, she's waking up to build stuff. She wants to wake up. Inclusion, whatever will make them feel home again. Because it might be that they'll never go back home. And that's one thing that is really hard to accept. And anyone who has to go through it, if ever, will tell you. So, Techfugees is financed solely by donations for now from individuals and companies. And we're extremely excited, grateful, really, really happy that Schibsted has chosen us to be partnering this year to launch our phase 2. I told you just about phase 1, how we did go on the ground, search the NGOs. We did hackathons to discover what's available out there. And now we're launching phase 2. And for phase 2, having you with us is the best thing that could happen to us. And here is how you can get involved. So what can you do? You can help us build our platform, Basefugees. If you're familiar with Crunchbase, which I guess a lot of you are, we've built the Crunchbase, or we've prototyped a Crunchbase for refugee tech, which will be and is a directory where all the innovation that is trying to tackle the refugees' needs will be listed, but also pitched to NGOs. And we believe that this will make our inbox lighter, but also it will enable us to scale that technology so that you'll have NGOs pitching their challenges on the ground directly to innovators. Will be able to pitch their solution, and there will be a bidding process. So it's almost a database, but it's more active than a database. It's actually people meeting and pitching. Looks like this, a little bit like Crunchbase. But it's more than a catalog of innovation. Actually, with Techfugees, we're building a network of engineers that want to help the humanitarian sector, that want to help refugees also directly, that are building projects, and NGOs working with refugees. If you want to get involved building these Basefugees, we'd love to hear from you. Another thing you can do, you can help us create more tech solutions. Come to our hackathons. Let's create tech. If you've been excited about what you've seen or you're interested in blockchain, come and let's collaborate. This was one of our hackathons in Berlin. We partnered with Ready School. Half of the participants were refugees. They coded, they actually won. Those guys who won, they built their app. They built a bureaucracy you might have heard of. It's an app that helps refugees apply for refugee status in Germany. They've built their own app. And if you come to our events, you'll see that we often bring kids so that they can learn from you guys, mentors, tech mentors. You can also help NGO that we work with to volunteer and teach them, to make a difference. You can directly go to them and help them build that app that they've always wanted to build, but they have absolutely no skill doing this. And you can lastly donate, so we can scale up our team, our platform, and employ refugees. So, Techfugees' ultimate objective is to support NGOs in finding durable tech solutions, to enable refugees around the world to rebuild their lives in dignity and safety. Because remember, if you volunteer with Techfugees, the prize at the end is you're going to save lives. These are the words that you might not be able to read of one of the volunteers who was in Sarajevo with us, who's worked 20 years with refugees, and he was here when the war in Bosnia started. He said that without the use of smartphones and the internet, this humanitarian crisis would have been a much bigger catastrophe. He's seen the guys in the middle of the forest calling on WhatsApp and giving the location to doctors. That's how they saved babies being delivered. And refugees have been able to send their location also to Coast Guards to save them. So, from a company that says we want to empower people in their daily life, what about taking a specific angle of helping the ones that are the most extreme experience of humanity, the one that is, they're not poor, they're not unskilled, they just couldn't stay in their country because they were threatened of death if they would stay. I'll let you think about this, and if you want to get involved, get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
you.